Blake, do you believe everything is bigger in Texas?
Tech, yeah. Have you seen their 75-mile-an-hour speed limits?
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, a man who found out that Texas treats its interstates like raceways. And I'm here with my co-host who placed number 2 in the Daytona 500 last year, Toby Walters.
And it's only because number 1 cheated.
Is it?
I'll just say my Daytona record speaks for itself.
Is Daytona in Texas? I should have picked the Texas racetrack.
No, Daytona is in Daytona Beach, Florida.
Didn't know that was a beach.
I know.
I thought it was just a racetrack.
Oh, Blake. I feel like we need just a long TV series of the education of Blake Hodges.
Racing is dumb. All right.
And I went to high school with, I wasn't in the same class, but Jimmy Johnson, not the old coach of the Cowboys, but the NASCAR driver.
I love Jimmy Johnson, the coach.
I know, but the NASCAR driver, we went to the same high school together. He was a few years older than me, but I was in classes with his younger brother. But I mean, he's probably one of the top 5 NASCAR drivers in history.
Well, it's because he learned it all from you.
I know. And to clarify, I think there's actually 80-mile-an-hour speed limits in West Texas.
I don't think I've ever been to West Texas. When I saw something above 70, this is so trivial, but it truly did blow my mind. I was like, everything really is bigger in Texas.
Yeah, it was fun because when I moved from California to Austin, Texas, we had to drive through West Texas. And I've done it a couple times, different moves with other family members. And you hit those stretches out there where there's just nothing except an 80-mile-an-hour speed limit sign. And it's just wonderful for a while.
To be honest, I think it kind of shows that Texas has more common sense than the rest of us. Because if there's nothing, you should be going 80, maybe even 90. Who cares?
So we moved to Austin and I started a band and we started traveling to churches all over the state, really. But West Texas is almost like another country because it's so big. So, generally Austin traveled to Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, and they're all, 2 to 3 hours away.
Daytona.
I know, exactly. So I was leading worship at a church in Houston one weekend, and my wife and I went out the day before on Saturday. We did rehearsals that afternoon, and then we had the evening off, and we thought, well, what do we want to do on Saturday night? And I had always wanted to go see Lakewood. I'd watched Osteen on TV. I'd seen the production. I was like, okay, we have a Saturday night. They have a Saturday night service. We got to check this out. So we go, and Blake, they're in like the former Rockets arena.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So... And who are the Rockets, Blake?
Basketball team.
Oh, you did it. I'm very proud of you. So we get there and we park and huge parking structure, and we go in, and obviously there's just thousands of people. And so we've never been there before, don't exactly know where we're going, what we're doing. But there were people in gold jackets that were very clearly like the greeters.
Members of the NFL Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Is that what they get, gold jackets?
They get a gold jacket.
And the golf guys get the
jacket.
Green jacket. Okay.
Because golf is lame.
So I went up to one of them and I said, hey, we're new here. We've never been here. Where do we go? What do we do? And it was like, hold the fort. Like, we have royalty here. And so they grab their walkie-talkie and they get on the walkie-talkie and they say, I swear they said we have VIPs with us. But they call in like another person with a gold jacket who was basically going to be our personal escort. And so
what I'm hearing is you hired an escort in Texas.
No, I did not do that. So Shelly and I essentially had our own personal Lakewood escort to guide us to where we were going to sit. And so they walk us to essentially a private elevator because it's kind of like there was another gold jacket standing there, making sure not just anybody used the elevator. And they let us in and they took us down all the way down to the arena floor. I mean, the whole place has been renovated into an incredible church building now.
I got to see this sometime.
It's still like the arena floor. And so we go down to the floor and our escort walks us up and keeps walking us up, up, up. And then literally pulls back a velvet rope that is like first class, so to speak. It's like the first 10 rows or so. And they give us like aisle seats in the 3rd row. And I've never been treated like this is at a church. It's just phenomenal. And Lakewood is so popular just worldwide that And we were there, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes before service was starting. So people were taking pictures in front of the stage. Like it's
quite impressive that a church of that size was still able to give what sounds like the nicest first-time guest.
It was amazing. I truly felt like royalty. And then, of course, the service was just, totally over the top with what they could do production-wise. And
it should have been like, the first will be last in the kingdom, so here's your back row seat.
They should have been, but they didn't. And of course, Osteen came out and he and his wife did the sermon. It was surreal because you watch this on TV and then you experience it in person, and it was a wild ride. And so I can confirm, I don't know about everything is bigger in Texas. I mean, I feel
churches, the speedways, the gas stations.
I feel like my muscles were bigger in Texas, but my head has always been this big, Blake. But the experience at Lakewood was one of the hugest church experiences that I've ever been a part of.
Well, the person single-handedly responsible for making it that amazing, the graphics operator and in-house AV supervisor at Lakewood, Matt Walden, is here with us today. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Can you confirm that the first-time guests are treated like Toby described, or is he giving us a lie?
Man, I don't know. I've never been treated that way. That's pretty impressive. I don't even think I could sit up there. So congrats.
I think they thought I was Thor because I get mistaken for Thor sometimes.
Gosh.
And so it makes sense.
As my father would say, it's getting deep in here. I don't know what that means. I just know it means a lie.
Speaking of lies,
Matt, you truly have an impressive 5 truths and a lie list. You sent us 11 at first when you were just kidding around before we booked you, and I was like, daggum, these are amazing. Well, I almost wanted to extend it for this episode. All right. And also, true to form, I don't remember what his lie was.
Oh, he told you his lie originally?
I think he did.
I changed it. So
okay.
we're good now. Perfect. You don't know what it is.
And for our listening audience, Blake is what we call a goldfish.
Yeah, I will have the best time with you, like a golden retriever, but the moment I leave your presence, I turn into a goldfish. I don't remember anything. Hope I never have to go to court. Number 1, I was tasked with babysitting a drunk...
Which is also what everybody who hangs out with you feels like.
All right. I used to work in childcare. That's so funny. I was tasked with oh my gosh. I was tasked with babysitting a drunk actor and his girlfriend to keep him from crashing people's victory speeches at an award show.
This sounds amazing. I hope this is true because
it's not so plausible.
I'm so hoping he's going to tell us who the actor is and not say I can't tell you who it is.
Or say they were in X movie or something.
Yeah. X-Men?
Yeah, there we go. I've had several items sent to the International Space Station. Among those are CDs, DVDs, movies, documentaries, and photos of my wife and I with Pope John Paul II and my daughter with Pope Francis.
What in the world? How could that even be true?
That is so outlandish.
Yeah.
That I think it is the lie. I think he went big. Number 3, I own the audio console from the Houston Astrodome.
What's the Astrodome, Blake?
That's another basketball stadium.
No, incorrect. That's where the Astros, the baseball team in Houston
baseball
plays.
Sucks. I pretty much just like the NFL. I'm just kidding, everyone else. Number 4, I have worked shows on 5 out of 7 continents.
If I asked you before this one, how many continents were there?
I was just thinking, could I list them all?
Yeah.
There's America. There's the Scary Lands. There's the Cold Place. All right, number 5.
There's America. There's 2 Americas in the continents.
What?
North America and South America.
That's just America plus.
Oh my gosh.
All right, number 5. My wife and I have 7 biological children.
That's... I don't know.
I just had to edit what I was about to say very
That's
loudly.
aggressive.
Number 6. Look, everything's bigger in Texas, even family.
That's true.
Number 6. I was having drinks by myself in an airport lounge on a layover when a member of the highwaymen asked if he could join me. Not long after, an A-list celebrity recognized him and asked if he could join us. We swapped stories for the next hour and a half.
You're really struggling with these words today.
I was drinking in an airport right before this, and clearly it's affecting me.
Clearly. And you can't give it away yet, but wasn't The Highwaymen, isn't that a series on Netflix of...
Oh, Toby, you don't know a pop culture reference? How dare you?
You're
going to hell. All right.
All right. Do we have a feeling here, Blake?
I think I do.
Okay.
You can
go first.
I think that number 2 is it's just too much. That's so much stuff to be sent to the international. Wait a minute. Those could be 5. No, I just don't believe it. I'm going to say number 2 is the lie and he went big.
Okay, I'm going to say number 5 is the lie that he and his wife do not have 7 biological children.
I almost went that route.
But you didn't.
All right, Matt, we're locked in.
So what do you want me to say? Which is the lie?
Yeah.
I do not have the audio console from the Houston Astrodome. I have the video switcher because I'm a video guy.
We should have known that. Dang it.
That just felt, I mean, he's in Texas.
That's true.
That's one of the best lies of all time we've ever had. You really got us.
Okay, I mean,
where to even start?
Are we even going to get to anything about production, or are we just going to talk about these?
That was literally, I was about to say the same thing.
Yeah, but you didn't. Okay,
wow.
Can you tell us who the drunk actor was that you were babysitting?
I'll tell you offline who the drunk actor was.
Was it difficult?
For the sake of the drunk actor.
Okay. Was it tough babysitting them, or was it just kind of like hand on the shoulder?
And
it was, I had to keep distracting them from watching the TV to see who was going on stage to receive the awards. So there was a lot of times where I had to take them outside on cigarette breaks.
And if it was Kanye, then you didn't do a very good job.
Oh, also, like, how were you approached to be given this assignment? Like, did someone just come up to you and be like, hey, we need you to babysit this guy?
I was working the awards show and I was only working for the first song. And so once that song was done, I was stuck at the awards show and couldn't really get my gear until after the show. So I was kind of just hanging around. So it's a perfect person for the job.
You know what they say? If you just walk around confidently, constantly, then people will think you're working and busy and important. So you should have been walking around so people couldn't have grabbed you.
Is that why you're constantly moving around here,
Yes.
Blake? Yeah.
All right. Tell us about the space station, which again is probably the most outlandish of all of these.
Man, so I used to be a youth pastor, and I was a youth pastor at a church directly across the street from NASA. So a bunch of my adult volunteers or parents were astronauts. And over the years, we started giving a lot of tours to bands. So bands would come into town and they'd say, hey, can we go check out NASA, meet some astronauts? And so I was basically a connector and a facilitator for that. And over the years, we flew a lot of CDs, and the astronauts would be on the space station, want to watch movies and documentaries, and we'd send them up there before they were released. And yeah, I mean, you have friends up there, things that happen, all those things that are in number 2 have happened.
After this, are you going to send this episode of the Church Gear podcast up to the space station?
Actually, we might be able to work that out.
Come on! That's the most excited I've seen Toby in a while.
And can we send Blake with it?
Oh, I would die. I would pass out like 5 times and poop myself. Speaking of pooping myself, how did you meet the Pope twice? It sounds like.
Yeah. Well, I was a Catholic youth minister. My spiritual director is a Catholic bishop. So when my wife and I got married, we went to Rome on our honeymoon and had a little audience with him, and he blessed our marriage. So we had a picture of that. And one of the times when we were sending up CDs and DVDs for a bunch of these bands and artists, my wife was like, send something for us. So we sent an actual physical picture of that, and they flew it up, took a picture of it with the earth in the background, got it back to us. The other one was my Pope Francis kissed my daughter. I have a picture of that. And the commander of the space station when that happened is Shane Kimbrough. If you guys are kind of familiar with some of the Passion stuff, it's one of Louis Giglio's really good friends. So he was up there. So I had emailed him a picture of that, and he took pictures of it all over the space station. So,
Blake, I feel like we're actually talking to the real most interesting man in the world.
Yes. And
Is
also
Dos Equis that has that guy?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I love how he's had 2 different crazy things happen, and both of them start with, well, I was a youth pastor. I mean, shout out to youth pastors out there.
I was a youth pastor for 2 or 3 years. It didn't go well.
That's kind of long. I thought you were going to say 6 months and then you got bored or you got fired.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've worked shows on 5 out of 7 continents? Like what?
Yes, sir.
What are the 2 you have left to do?
Haven't been to Antarctica. Haven't worked a show in South America.
Have there been any shows in Antarctica?
I don't know if there are.
You know, that feels like something a rich celebrity would do just for other celebrities to get notice and publicity. And we got to tell you, Matt Walden is your guy to bring out.
Or what if we did the Church Gear podcast on every continent?
Again, that would be I don't know what they are.
If we could just land on Antarctica and then we could like just talk some of the nonsense into our phone.
Fly away.
Yeah,
I
immediately.
think Karen and Nathan are going to Antarctica for a trip.
That's on his bucket list.
So you have 7 children?
I do.
That's are you going to be working until you're 85?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, he's already 81.
Toby.
He's just aging well.
Gracious. Can you tell us any more names or illumination on number 6 about having drinks in the airport lounge?
Yes. So the Highwaymen was not the TV show. I'm talking the Highwaymen, the old country music supergroup with Johnny Cash and Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson and Chris Christopherson. So I was in an airport lounge, just sitting all by myself in a corner because I don't like people. And this guy came and sat right next to me, and I turned around and it was Chris Christopherson. And I had been working for Crowder, and Crowder had released a song called Why Me Lord, which was written by Chris Christopherson. So he and I started talking, and man, we had been there for probably 45 minutes, just hanging out, having a good time. When this guy came up and interrupted us and said, "Hey, excuse me, are you Chris Christopherson?" He said, "Yeah." And I looked up and it was Gerard Butler from, the actor Gerard Butler. And so he is like, "Do you mind if I sit down?" I don't have any problems with that at all. And so he sat down and we just had a great conversation until we all had to get up and go catch our flights.
Okay, Blake, you know who Gerard Butler is,
Yeah,
right?
Gerard Butler is like the man to my generation. He was in 300.
Hey, Toby,
Oh, yeah.
It sounds like he got one.
He got one.
He was in
But
300. I mean, that's one of the most epic dude movies of all time.
tell us who Chris Christopherson is.
Friends with Gerard Butler. He was in The Highwaymen. You didn't know who The Highwaymen were earlier?
Blake, what was the movie a few years ago with
Old man Toby coming
No.
in clutch here.
what's her name?
Oh
Oh my gosh. Now I'm getting old.
Yeah, you're 81.
Who's the singer, the pop singer that plays piano and she wears like the crazy outfits? Lady Gaga. What was the movie that Lady Gaga was in?
Oh gosh.
I know.
They've had like 100 iterations of this movie.
Yeah. So the original was Chris Christopherson was in it. And I mean, he was an actor and a country singer, very famous for many, many years. It's just before your time, Blake.
You know what's weird is Bradley Cooper actually sang in that movie. And I'm not a fan of actors singing because their part said they sang if they can't actually sing. I'm like, what are you doing? That's weird.
No, he did it.
Cut it out. All right, so let's talk about your background, Matt. Although I feel like there's no way we could ever encapsulate you in just a background question, but
It's going to become the Church Gear podcast and Matt Walden.
yes. So you're a visual guy in a world where church production prioritizes audio first. So talk to us about like the importance of what people see and how. Toby, what did we do on this question? That's not a background question. That's like a production question.
Well, let's jump to the background then. You've worked with a number of Christian artists, Crowder, Third Day, Toby Mac, the secondary Toby, by the way. So you're a visual creationist, I would assume. Talk to us about what that is. What are you creating for these artists? What goes into that process for you?
Yeah, man. So I guess, you talked a little about the background, and I didn't ever start. I listened to the other podcasts you've done, and everybody says, man, I was behind a console at the age of 15 and, I was really hustling and working and like, that was not my path. My path was one of, I was a soccer player for a long time. And then I became a youth pastor. I had a band. And I just kind of did all of our visuals. And at one point I was like, man, I just think I'd be better backstage than I am on stage. There's so many people that can do what I can do on stage, but not a lot that can do what I do backstage. And coming from a Catholic background, I have a great knowledge of the history of visuals in the church. You talked about how in the other question, I'm blending these questions together because I think they fit there. Where you're talking about how I'm a visual guy in a world where people prioritize audio so much, but that wasn't always the case. When you really go back and look at the history of the church, you have, there weren't consoles and speakers. There was no way to amplify audio. So that became the way that you did that was through the way that you created your buildings. And that's why when you look at a lot of the older cathedrals, they're long and narrow so that the sound could bounce off the walls and get to the back of the church. But what you'd also find is that you had a people who were largely illiterate. And so the ways that they learned the scriptures was by looking up and seeing the visuals that were in the churches. That's what stained glass is for. That's what mosaics are for, and paintings. That's what the statues that they were making. All of this was to get people to learn the stories of scripture. You can look over to the left and you'll see, stories of Moses and the burning bush. And you look to the right and you start to see stories of Jesus. That's why Catholic churches always had the Stations of the Cross, so that you could learn the journey of Jesus to the cross. And so they used visuals to do these things. And so I kind of see myself these days as a visual worship leader. And I think that the most important thing that people like me can do is try to find out what it is that the artist is trying to convey with their voice, and try to convey the same story with visuals. It's like watching a movie with a great soundtrack. When visuals and audio go together, they can take you somewhere that you couldn't have gotten with just one of those mediums. And so I think that over the years, what I started to do was I started to bring that kind of a mindset into a lot of these artists' world, and it would be like, how can we tell the same story together? Because a lot of times a band plays something, they just put something cool on the screens, but how do we tell a story, and how do we tell it together? So one of the things I would always do with artists is sit down and go, what were you thinking when you wrote this song? What was going through your head? What kind of visuals do you see? How can I do that in a concert environment? And so, that's kind of the story of how I got into it. I was lucky in the NASA stuff that I had just a lot of relationships with artists. I had friendships with them before I ever worked with them. That's like a little backwards from a lot of people. I grew up with a Catholic artist named Matt Maher. I've known him since 1997. And we just, a lot of this came out of friendships. It came out of saying, hey, I think I can help. And that's just, so I got in the wrong way. I didn't get into production like everybody else. I didn't cut my teeth. I kind of snuck in the back door. And I did it for a long time.
So what's in your toolkit as a visual creator? Are you just creating things to put on the LED screen? Are you creating lighting designs? What are you pulling out of your toolbox to create all the visual elements that we experience?
Man, I think, it depends on what level the client or the artist brings you in. I have, there were times I remember, just sitting down on a tour bus, planning a tour and working with the lighting guy and working with the band and saying, what can we do? What can we do to do things a little differently than they've been done? What story are we trying to tell? Where are we trying to go? And how can we get there together? Because me as a video guy, if I'm putting stuff on LED screens and the lighting guy is doing something different, it's going to be awful. So we do, there's a lot of that communication that happens, but my toolkit is I have a lot of content. I always see myself more as like if you go to a museum, there's the curator of the museum. There's the person that arranges the way that the museum looks in such a way that you have an incredible experience at the museum. But that person is not the painter. They didn't create the art. They just introduce it to you in a way that's compelling. That's kind of what I would do at shows. And so I wasn't creating all the graphics. I would know what story they're trying to tell. I would have a large collection of just all kinds of media, and I would arrange it in such a way that we can tell that story.
Blake, I still remember this concert I went to probably 20 years ago, and they were just playing like old cartoons on the screen behind the band, like old Mighty Mouse stuff. And I mean, it was the simplest thing, but we had so much fun. And it was like a post-punk band, so it made perfect sense. I remember him looking back one time. He's like, oh, this episode's a good one. Check this one out while we play this next song. And so I just love, Matt, the going back in history, just all the visual elements you're talking about. Like, I've never really thought of that. They didn't have audio back then. They had art and stained glass. And so now you fast forward, you've got all these incredible digital tools. And I assume it can become chaos if somebody like yourself isn't curating the whole scene. If the lighting designer has one idea and the video guy has another idea and it just doesn't go together. So do you almost feel like a conductor of the visual elements, so to speak?
Yeah. I think there's a great responsibility with it. I think that at any moment I can ruin a service. At any moment. And if you don't think that's true, wait until we do the offering and all of a sudden I put dollar bills on the LED wall. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there are certain things that I could do to ruin a moment, no matter how much the spirit is moving, no matter how much the artist is connecting with the audience. If I'm not on my game, I can ruin it. But the same is also true that if I am on my game and if I'm into the moment and I understand where we're going, I can help us get there in a way that's not possible without me.
To his friends, he says that as a promise, and to his enemies, he says it as a threat that I could ruin any service at any moment.
And Matt, do you have like a favorite tour yourself that you've worked on, like just the end product that you're most proud of, or?
It was the dollar bills during the tithe, Toby.
It brought in so much more money.
I think the last one that I did. So in 2019, it was kind of my going away tour. I had already kind of signed a deal with Lakewood, and I knew that I was going to be getting off the road. And I got to do it with friends. I got to do that tour with people that I had kind of gotten into the business with. So I was on tour when the pandemic hit, actually cut the tour short. I was on tour with Crowder and Passion Music, and Hillsong Young and Free was with us. Andy Mineo, Louis Giglio was out with us. And I think that I kind of went out on top in terms of with the people that I came in with. And I also was able to just do some really cool stuff. Like, we were creating content in real time for that tour. So Crowder didn't really have any content, and they trusted me to kind of create his entire set from scratch. And it was all the visuals on the LED wall were being created in real time behind him based on camera shots. So some of the pictures from that tour are just incredible. You look at it and you're just going, wow, that was awesome.
Was that stressful? I mean, are you sweating it, thinking you got to make all this kind of last second?
Well, the difference in a tour like that is I'm not just firing back content. So everything, it was, I have to be in my seat for every song. I have to be, there are certain things in the software that I was using where I would have to be monitoring it and affecting things in real time. So it's not just a time code thing where you plug it in and it just goes. But there's also not a lot of stress to it when you're just doing things with friends. I didn't get stressed very often. I had a lot of fun with it,
And is your beard approaching Crowder's level at all? Because that's an impressive beard.
Well, thank you. You hang around with a group of guys for long enough, it just kind of happens.
I need to hang out more dudes. I cannot grow a beard to save my life. I need it to cover this pudgy face.
I don't know if there's anything. I mean, maybe Sweet Pete. If you hung out with Sweet Pete every single day, maybe you'd get.
I tried to buy his beard off of
just
him.
A couple little, chin
fuzz
scraggles.
Hairs.
Yeah,
Toby, I have a picture of me with the beard somewhere on my phone.
I've seen that. It's horrifying.
It is. So
don't ever
atrocious.
do that again. Yeah,
I've heard it said that some people just aren't meant to have beards, and they're called women and children.
Yeah.
That's a good freaking burn. Oh man.
Blake, what the heck is video dust?
That's what happens whenever Nathan gets really mad testing video gear and he smashes it with a hammer.
See, that's what I was thinking. Like, if Matt's working in the video system and like his beard gets into the wiring a little bit, he gets video dust in his beard.
I see that.
Matt, I'm sorry about this stupid humor. What is video dust?
So this is it's a product that was started by two guys in England, and one of them was the video director for Kings of Leon, and the other guy was a composer from America.
Kings of Leon is the intersection of me and Toby's taste. That's like the band we love the most and can agree on. So
I do like Kings of Leon.
That's what we'll listen to in the car tomorrow. Sorry.
Well, there you go. These guys partnered up and decided to create a software that could affect live video in real time. And so it reacts to audio, it reacts to light, it takes camera shots and does crazy things with them. And so they were kind of the groundbreaking company behind this. And at first, when they started, it was just two guys. And so they would approach bands and handpick them. They would go to Coldplay and say, hey, we've got a software we think you guys are going to do great with. They would go. So some of the earliest bands they worked with were, Coldplay and Ed Sheeran and people like that. And so as attendees are going to these concerts and seeing things on the screens that they've just never seen before, they're like, how is that even possible? Things like taking if you're playing a guitar, blowing you into a million pieces and putting you back together again in real time, slow-moing live video, so guitarist gets on the drums and jumps off and hitting, all of a sudden the screens have him in slow-mo. They built a looping function for Ed Sheeran. He plays all the different, hits on his guitar, then plays something, then sings something. Being able to record it and pip it and put it in the side and have it keep going throughout the presentation. So they were just doing really cool stuff, but it was all invite only. They didn't have a website. They didn't have, people didn't know how this stuff was happening. They're kind of operating behind the scenes for a long time.
And so what's your involvement? Are you kind of an artist with them, so to speak?
Well, a very chance meeting put me in touch with these guys, and they flew out to, I was working a show in Italy, and they flew out to Italy to demo the software for me, and we got along great. And I became their US rep. And so it was my job because they still hadn't released publicly yet. So it was my job to go around to different cities and demo it for different, bands and artists and producers and lighting guys and whoever. And if they wanted the software to help them get it set up and get it ready for their tour.
Have any churches dipped their toes into this yet?
Not that I'm aware of. And there's a part of me that says that might be Pandora's box. That might not be such a good idea.
Is there someone quarterbacking this software, or is it so sophisticated it's just running?
No, you would have an operator for it.
And if our listeners want to check out some YouTube videos, do you have favorite clips that you like to point people to?
You can go to their website. It's thunderingjacks.com.
Thought it was Video
and,
Dust.
The company is called Thundering Jacks. The product is called Video Dust.
Got it.
So you can go there and you can kind of check it out. They do have some videos that you can see on there for some of the stuff they're doing.
So, speaking of more fun production gear, I'm just curious because when I went and visited Lakewood, I honestly wasn't that interested in that moment in my life. I was much more in the worship realm. I don't remember what gear they were using. I don't remember the line array. And, this was 15 years ago. So if you can, tell us just a little bit about the systems that Lakewood's running.
Oh, man. Yeah. So we've got, let's see, you said line array. It's a JBL Vertec line array. Our consoles are all Studer.
Mm-hmm.
And so our front of house consoles is Studer. And then we have Studer in Monitor World and Broadcast. We've got, let's see, how many, I think we have 400 square meters of LED, which comes out to about 1,600 panels.
Wow.
All of our consoles are talking to each other, with Dante and all kinds of stuff like that. So it's a really cool thing being in a venue like this, but being able to make it permanent instead of, it's a concert venue, right? It's everybody's played here. Everybody from Kiss to Michael Jackson, they've played this building, this space. It was built for basketball and concerts. And so it's, seats 16,500 people, which is like the tours that are going out. You're going and doing arena tours, but you set it up and then you tear it down, and you move on to the next city. We're able to create a permanent setup and tweak it and fine tune it and make it perfect.
Have you ever talked to any production guys that had been through the Toyota Center? No, it was, what was it called?
It was called the Summit, and then it was called the Compact Center.
Got it. I think Toyota Center's the new arena for the Rockets. So have you ever talked to anybody that went through there on a tour and now they come back to a Lakewood service and I assume it sounds very different to them?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. I mean, we were able to put in, so even in NBA arenas, there's not a lot of acoustic treatment, right? I mean, they're not built for concerts. They'll bring concerts through, but they're not built for, live music. And so one of the cool things here was being able to, completely redo the room and make it so that it does sound good. And it does. It sounds great.
Do you guys have any just big equipment plans coming up that something fun's getting overhauled?
Not really. Not really.
Toby,
Not that I'm aware of.
That's state secrets.
I know.
When you're working in such a big arena and like such a big church, is it just, scale? Like, all right, more of all the stuff we normally have? Or is it that plus like a philosophical shift in approach? Or is it like, no, the same principles that apply in a small place are going to apply in a big space? Like it's all the same.
Tech wise, obviously there's differences. I mean, we have big toys that not a lot of people have. I mean, that's just the reality. And so your philosophy is going to be different than if you have gear that's broken all the time. Like we're able to do, nice things. We're able to do things at a level that most other churches couldn't dream of. We have infrastructure that most churches have never seen before. A lot of times when people are in Houston, I'll kind of take them around and people just, sit there and look and they're like, man, this is something else. And so it is different, it's a lot different. And a lot of the people that work here, if they go somewhere else, it's kind of like a,
culture shock.
It can be. Yeah, it is, because we have some really nice things here and we're able to do some really cool things.
And is the kind of the level of stress and expectation on Sunday mornings higher just because you guys have such a huge production and you're on TV? Or, do you feel like you've created kind of a balance where you guys know what you're doing and it runs itself?
I mean, we had a meeting yesterday and it's just like, man, guys, don't ever forget the story of that one lady that was on stage and gave her testimony about how she was watching on TV and it changed her life. And so we have a great responsibility. And we all take it very seriously. And so there is a certain stress level there, but at the same time, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to change people's lives all over the world every week.
Blake, I feel like you and I need to get on TV with the Church Gear podcast.
I think people will be backtracking, Toby. I think they'll digress from there.
I feel like, Sunday mornings, open up with Joel Osteen and close with the Church Gear podcast.
There we go. We're the after dinner mint. That's crazy. So then how do you translate like the large scale tour budget and production possibilities into a Sunday morning worship experience? Because it's almost like you're doing a Taylor Swift concert, but for a church. Like it feels almost like you have the wish fulfillment of any tech in the country in terms of like, if I really had all that gear, I could do X. Like how does that, I guess honestly, how does that feel? How does that play out? Like, what do you think about the situation that you're in that regard?
You talk about budget's a little different. I mean, we don't have to rent gear all the time. It's all there. Those, honestly, I think those decisions are something that I'm not involved with very much. Is how do we take advantage of all the stuff that we have? That's not, that's outside of my realm.
And you guys, does Lakewood host Christian artists coming through on tour?
Occasionally, not often. I mean, our church is, and part of that is because of scheduling. Mm-hmm. We have to be able to do rehearsals and we do services on Sundays and stuff like that. And we do events sometimes, so I think Dr. Tony Evans and his whole family were here and they did a 2-day event here 2 months ago, I think.
Nice.
That's cool. As we just said, the stakes are higher because you got more eyeballs, but it doesn't matter how high the stakes are. Murphy's Law still applies. So we love a good disaster story here at the Church Gear Podcast. So tell us a moment when just everything went wrong and how you handled it and what you learned from it. And if it's at Lakewood, that's cool. If it's on tour, that's cool. Like just any disaster story, we are here for it.
All right. Well, let's see. Disaster story. There's a lot of them. I picked one that I think was pretty awesome. So, little backstory on it was I'd been asked to sub in for a friend for Kari Jobe, and she was doing a music festival. I said, "Hey, can you come in and run our video for us?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, absolutely. I'd love to." We flew into Nashville, drove all the way to I think it was New Hampshire or something, and the
Why'd you fly
LED
into? Why didn't you
processor
fly
was busted.
in New Hampshire?
Well, don't ask. And so I got there, and the LED processor was busted. It didn't work, so we had no LED wall. So I didn't really get to do anything. And I was like, man, that was a disaster. It was a disaster that was out of my control. I was like, I'm probably never going to get called again. They just paid me money to just hop on the bus and hang out, basically. But I did get a call. I got a call. Hey, can we, have you back again? We're playing Rock the Universe. It's a really big show for us. Our video guy can't do it. Second chance. Do you want it? I'm like, absolutely. I'm like, let's do this. So we fly into, I did fly into Orlando on this one. And so I fly into Orlando and we get all set up, and the lineup for that day was some band from Brazil was the opener, and then Kari, and then the Newsboys. And so the way you do sound check is the Newsboys are going to be the first band to check, and then we're going to set up in front of them, and we're going to check, and then the next band sets up in front of us, and they check. So Newsboys set up, everything was great. We set up. They hand me their computer. Their computer has their whole show on it. Now, I still haven't seen their show. I don't know what's on the computer because I've never seen their visuals. I've never seen what they do. But I'm ready. I'm ready to go. So we set up and everything's working. We check. And then the other band comes in to set up. And so we go to ride roller coasters. And so we all go out and we're riding roller coasters. It's pretty cool. We're VIP. They take us to the front of the line and we get to skip all the lines. So we did the Harry Potter ride. I think we did the Indiana Jones ride. I don't know what else we did. Apparently, while we were in there riding, it had rained, and like it is known to do in Orlando in the afternoon. But luckily, before I left, I had, tarped off my video world and made sure everything was good. So we get back probably about 30 minutes before Kari's supposed to go on. And I walk on stage and notice that the opening band had pulled the tarp up and had forgot to replace it. And I picked up the computer, and it was their computer, it was Kari's computer, and water was just flowing out of it. And we were due to go on stage in 30 minutes, and I had never seen their show, and I had no idea what their things were supposed to look like. So I tried to, I opened the computer and it wouldn't turn on. It was done. So I asked if they had a backup, and they didn't have a backup. And so literally it was on me to create their show in about 15 minutes time. And so I pulled out a hard drive that I just had a bunch of my content on it that I knew inside and out. I had her lyrics saved on my computer, on my personal laptop, because I'd been working on some stuff on that bus ride a couple weeks before to the music festival. And I just put together a show kind of on the fly. And I was like, well, let's just hope it's good. And so we're going through the show and I'm killing it. I'm killing it. I'm killing it. We get to her big song at the very end. And I have this moment where I don't know exactly what graphic to go to. But I go with my gut and I put it up, and immediately I see it on the screen. I'm like, oh, I don't like it. It doesn't fit. It's not right. I'm going to change it as soon as they finish this chorus. Well, before they could finish the chorus, Kari has a talkback mic, so she holds a button and she's able to talk to everybody's ears. And she kind of had turned around and seen the LED wall, and she said something like, that is the worst graphic I've ever seen. And I heard it in my ears, and I'm like, yep, I know. And so I changed it real quick. So after the show, I go up and I apologize. I'm like, man, Kari, I missed it on that one. Sorry about that. I probably shouldn't have put it up, but I was with you. I was tracking. I didn't think it fit. She's like, and she goes, wait, you could hear me? And I was like, yeah. I had a clone of your pack. So I was, and she literally said, I think this is the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened. And from here on out, whenever I get asked in radio interviews, what's your most embarrassing moment? This is it. So that was my disaster story that I saved, and then I lost it. at the very end.
Why was she embarrassed? Because she had said like that is weird.
I don't think she thought I could hear her, and she didn't want me to get offended. So
yeah, she hated the graphic. She told her band through her talkback mic, but didn't realize that Matt could hear her also.
So she's a 9 on the Enneagram, like because that is not a big deal at all to me, man.
Yeah, I just tell Blake to his face everything I don't like about him.
Well, I'm assuming he said that graphic was awful. I'm assuming he had a picture of your face somehow. All right, Matt, do you have any other?
Whose face, Blake?
Your face, Toby.
Oh my gosh, you dummy.
Do you have any other disaster stories you want to hit us with? Or should we?
Oh boy.
I mean, I'm a sucker for him. I'll take one more if you got it.
Well, yeah, another music festival. I'm not going to name the companies involved, but we were having this very spirited conversation about backups and, what should we have backups for? So do I need a backup media server? Most people would say yes. I would argue no. And I have my reasons for saying that. But I was having a conversation with the guy that owned the video truck that was providing video for the festival. And he's like, man, your system's great, but you don't have backups. I just don't think I could use you. And I was like, man, but you can't have a backup for everything. Everything's tech. Where's your backup audio console? Where's your backup video switcher? And right as we were having this conversation, the generator went down and we lost all power in the video truck. Everything went dead. So my computer went dead. The video switcher went dead. The LED walls at the music festival went dead. And I just looked at him. I said, where's your backup video truck?
You cursed it.
So for the next, yep, I did. So for the next 45 minutes, I mean, we just had nothing and we couldn't do anything until they got the generator back up and running.
That's funny. Oh man.
I have a backup for Blake. Actually, I cannot wait to reveal it someday.
Impossible. Impossible.
Blake, I've been wanting to ask you this the entire episode. What is that flashing thing behind Matt?
That is the brain core for his computer.
Come on, man. Have you seen Back to the Future?
Yes, I've watched all 3 recently, and they were great.
What is that then?
I don't know.
That's the flux capacitor.
Oh, okay. Well, now
Come on. It's what makes time
perfluxed.
travel possible, Blake.
Okay. Wait, are you saying Matt was in Back to the Future? How are they going to get Back to the Future if he took their flux capacitor?
I don't know.
What the
Doc
flux?
Brown must have gave it to him.
This is so that we can go back in time and correct all of your mistakes afterwards.
Oh,
Yeah, hey-o.
Man, we can't bring Matt back. He's so good at zinging me.
He's actually my backup for you. So
There you go. Well, you better be careful. He might come for you next. Okay, Matt, hit us with a tech takeaway to wrap us up on here.
I think it goes for text, but I also it's something I've become keenly aware of over the years when I was on the road so much. And it's really easy when we work for the church to get our priorities mixed up. I'm a firm believer that we're supposed to put God first, family second, and work third. And when we work for God, it's really easy for it to hop up the totem pole. It's really easy to blur those lines and let our job come before our family. And I think it's incredibly vital for us to make sure that we keep those things in check, that we keep that in order for our families and for our jobs. And I think that God wants us to have good families. God wants us to do good work. But I don't think that because we work for God, we should ever elevate our job over our family, which is very easy to do in the church when we can start to think that I need to do this because I work for the church. So my tech takeaway would be to constantly realign those priorities and make sure that you're keeping things in the proper order.
I like that one, Blake.
Yeah, you got to keep it in the proper order. God, family, friends, kayaking trips, and work. So,
Do you even work here?
That's what they tell me.
Uh-huh.
Matt, what do you want to plug, man? Other than the holes in all of my arguments over here.
You can come find me on the socials. My website has some cool pictures of some of these shows that we talked about. Website is mattwaldengfx.com. Matt Walden GFX on Instagram. I'm on the Facebooks too. So
Facebooks. That's where Grandpa Toby lives. He loves the Facebooks.
That's where I put my face.
Okay. Well, Matt, thanks for coming on, dude.
Absolutely.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope to see you back next week for more absurd stories, tech takeaways, and overall buffoonery here at the Church Gear Studios.
Blake, if we ended up, and I'm just assuming that it's going to happen on TV, just, Joel Osteen, Church Gear Podcast, who do you think's going to, get the most, social shout-outs? What do they call them? Live tweeting?
Yeah, there you go. I don't think it'll be you. I don't think it'll be me. I think it'll be Church Gear collectively. I think everyone will tweet out the podcast, Facebook it, Instagram it, Reddit it, TikTok it, and people will find us and it'll be great. And I'll be so happy.
But what about the Facebooks?
The Facebooks will be your department. I'll be monitoring the Instagrams and you'll be on the Facebooks. And we'll get Brian and Sean on the MySpaces.
Okay. That's where I put my face.